Okay.
All right.
Anyway, welcome everyone. Hope you're cool in a good air-conditioned building tonight for the program. Appreciate you all attending. I hope this is helpful to you. It's certainly appropriate weather that we've been having, and we're expected to have this summer to be talking about wildfire. I'm just going to go through a few housekeeping things about Zoom. The first thing is, if something happens to the technology, the power goes out, my air conditioner blows up, whatever, and we go black, I will try to log back on, see if I can reestablish a connection. If I'm unable to do that, then Melody will be sending you out a rescheduled time where we will try it again. Sometimes the technology or the power company does not cooperate. I know Avista is going to be turning off people's power. I don't know if I'm on their list or not, but it was mentioned today. I got an email in the paper this morning. The electricity demand is higher than some of their systems can handle, so they have been turning off the electricity. The other thing I'd like to mention is if you would please keep yourself muted unless you're asking a question. The mute button is should be on the lower left-hand corner of your screen. It's a little microphone, and it's a toggle. You can check it to mute or unmute with your mouse. And if you're calling in by phone, it's *6 to mute or unmute. So please keep yourself muted to cut down on the background noise. On questions, what I would ask folks to do is I'm going to have some stops in the presentation. It's not a very long presentation tonight, but I will have some stops in it for questions. And if you would hold your questions till I stop and ask for questions, that might help things go a little smoother. If you got a burning question, you just have to ask it. Jump right in there. I would not use, you can use the chat, but I won't read it during the presentation. I have my, I'm not very good at multitasking, so I've got my effort is focusing on what I'm trying to say, and the chat is kind of distracting. You're welcome to chat. It's just, I won't read it until the break. If we do take a break, we'll see how long the presentation goes, or till after the program, but that's perfectly fine. And I think when we have questions, I think with no more people than we have, you can just speak up and ask your question. If people start talking over one another, then I'll ask you to raise your hand, and then I'll call on you if that gets to be a problem. Let's see here. Okay, I think I covered all of the logistics on this that I wanted to. The first thing that I'll mention, well, first let me get my slide up in case I have any issues with that. Okay, Melody, are you seeing my first slide?
Yes, I am.
Okay, it's weird. I don't have the pictures going down the right-hand side of my screen, so I can't see people. That's kind of weird.
Okay.
Well, okay, well, I'll just go this way. I hate not seeing folks, but the handout that Melody sent you, Living with Fire, there's a lot of these type of publications out for reducing wildfire risk around your home. And I found this one to be the best one overall. If I had to pick one, it would be that. Again, there's a lot of them are available. That particular publication was produced by the University of Nevada, Reno. And then in 2015, when we had all the fires around the Clearwater country, a consortium of the folks with the Forest Service, Idaho Department of Lands, et cetera, got together and got permission to tweak it a little bit. So it's a little bit more focused on the vegetation types that we have around here. But it's a really excellent publication. I would encourage you to read it. It has the specific metrics in there about how many feet you should have certain types of vegetation away from your home, depending on the slope and other factors around your home. And I would say, you know, that publication was produced sometime back before 2015. You know, it could be approaching 10 years old. I would suggest, if I were you, to do maybe a little bit more than what they recommend, maybe a lot more than what they recommend. The fire behavior that we're starting to see in the Western United States is kind of unprecedented, very extreme fire behavior behind these dry winds, long flame lengths, just kind of off the charts fire behavior. So I would, you don't want to lose your home, you don't want to lose your outbuildings or yourself. So I would say go maybe a little bit further out than what some of that the handouts suggest. But I won't be talking about any of those specifics on feet and slope and all that. I'm leaving you the handout so you can get that right from the handout and apply that to your specific property and your specific situation. Okay, well, first of all, just an outline of what I'll be talking about tonight. First, just a little summary. We'll talk about wildfire factors, why wildfire is becoming such an issue in Idaho and much of the Western United States. A little bit of the context for understanding wildfire today, and then analysis of wildfire risk to homes. And I will have a couple of videos to show you as well during the PowerPoint. So just a basic summary, I guess, you know, if you don't remember anything about the presentation tonight, remember these things. Get flammable material away from your home. It's not rocket science. Anything that can burn should not be near your home. So that's step one. Step two is to keep fire and embers from getting inside your home. Embers, storms out in front of these wildfires, rain down on your house. We'll see a video of an artificially created ember storm. And those embers can get in little cracks and vents and stuff like that around your house. And that's what causes the majority of houses typically to be burned in a wildfire, not a wall of fire hitting the house, but it's the ember storm that gets the house on fire. And sometimes those embers can get up in your attic in places and the house burns down days after the main fire front has already passed. So those two things are probably the most important. Third bullet, yeah, you've got to think about, I know people like, some people like a yard with lots of landscaping and shrubs and things like that. But if you live near wildlands, whether it's rangeland or dry pasture land, grassland, or forest, you really need to think differently about how you landscape your lawn. Also, there's no guarantees. Some of the fire behavior we saw last year in Oregon and California was just amazing. I don't know if you looked at any of the pictures, but some of these places, it was hard to see any vegetation or any combustible material. Cars out in the middle of a blacktop parking lot that were just incinerated. So if the fire is severe enough, if it's an extreme condition, even what you do around your home may not protect it. So there's no guarantee, but the research shows you can certainly reduce your risk of losing your home if you take the steps that we'll be talking about tonight and then are in the handout that Melody sent out to you earlier. The other thing to remember is escape route. I have some neighbors that, their houses are metal siding, metal roofs, etc., pretty fire resilient or resistant, but, they have these narrow driveways that go through timber and some brush, very narrow. If a fire came up the canyon and they were there and they had to get out, they may not have a good chance of getting out. So definitely think about your escape route. The number one thing, of course, over your home is to protect your own life and those of your loved ones and your family. So make sure you have a good escape route to get out if there's a fire. And then a lot of this, folks, is just basic common sense, just like get a flammable material away from your house. So a lot of it is just plain common sense. So wildfire factors, we'll be talking about some of these as fuel, of course. There has to be something to burn like wood, vegetation, etc. And then how the fuel, you might say the structure of the fuel, its density and continuity of fuel is an issue, and we'll be talking about that. Fuel moisture, basic, how dry is the fuel? The drier the fuel, the more readily it's going to burn. Topography is a huge issue, and we live in some very challenging fire-prone topography here in north central Idaho with our canyon topography, with the steep canyon slopes and draws, and winds can go up those canyons and just act like a chimney. And if you have a house that's built on a slope and you've got forest or rangeland or grass below your house, you're really going to have to make an extra effort to get flammable material much further down slope than what it would be if you were on level ground. So topography is a major issue. Wind and humidity. So when the National Weather Service issues a red flag warning, it's typically when you have dry fuels, you have high winds, and very low humidity. And certainly we're having that sort of situation recently. We've been having that the last couple of days with these dry easterly winds. So if you've got dry fuels, depending on where you live here in north central Idaho, our fuels aren't quite as dry as they're going to be, but they're about as dry now as they are much later in July. So they're getting really, they're going to be getting dry, especially after this weather we're having now. Then, of course, you need an ignition source. And when you have this kind of dry fuel, wind, and very low humidities, doesn't take much. A spark, you could be working out in your shop or something like that. And maybe if you pull your grinder outside, there was a fire that started just behind our extension office back in 2012. Somebody was doing some grinding just outside their shop, and a spark got on the grass and it just went right up the hill. So doesn't take much to start a fire when you have these kind of conditions like we're having and expected to have this summer. The other thing is suppression resource availability. One of the concerning things about this fire season, this summer that we're going into, is most of the West is in drought, and even severe and even exceptional drought, class 4 drought. So what that means is there's likely to be fires over a large area. And so that's going to pull down suppression activity to fight those fires. So that is another thing. I've heard fire professionals who fight fire talk about not only defensible space, and we'll talk about what that means a little later in the presentation. If I don't mention it, ask me. But survivable space. So you want to have your structure so that even if there's not any people around to try to keep the wildfire from reaching your home, you want to increase the probability that it will still survive. Okay, we'll talk about a little bit about wildfire risk. So most wildfires nationally are human caused. They're caused by people, but there's also a lot of fires that are lightning caused. And you can see from this map, the red shading is density of lightning strikes. And you can see this sort of pattern of Northern California, the Sierras, up through Southern Oregon and in through Central Idaho. Firefighters call this lightning alley. So it's natural for us to have a lot of lightning in our forest lands and wildlands in Idaho and create fire starts. This is a map produced by Idaho Department of Lands and looking at relative fire risk. And I don't know all the criteria or don't recall it that went into creating this map, but you can see a lot of orange and red, particularly in our area for heightened fire risk. These are fire perimeters in Idaho since 1984 through 2017. It does capture the fire perimeters we had up here in 2015, and you can see we've had a lot of fire in Idaho in recent decades. Wildfire impacts are growing in the West. You can see this graph just showing the number of wildfires larger than 100,000 acres in size that burned each year. So the size of fires is increasing and the severity of fires is increasing. These are sometimes called mega fires. Whoop, went the wrong direction. This is a little dated graph, but you can see the pattern. You can see in the early 20th century, and I'll talk about in a bit why we had fires then more due to climatic factors, very low through the mid 20th century. And then in recent years and decades, increased fire. 2015, we had over 9 million acres burn. At least that was the national figure, I think. I'm not sure if that was just the West, but anyway, same kind of pattern. Last year in the West, I heard on the webinar that I attended yesterday about our climate forecast for the summer, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation, what I heard yesterday. 8.2 million acres burned, so that's even off this chart last year. And then this is just a ranking of states, most wildfire prone states by households affected. And you can see in the number of households affected, you know, Idaho is not a very populated state compared to California, so we rank 5th, but in the percentage of our households, we rank number 1. 24% of Idaho residents live in the wildland urban interface or areas that are prone to wildfire. So next I want to talk about a little bit about why we're having more wildfire in these recent decades. One of the things is something called the Pacific Decadal Oscillation. So this is a natural, or better put, non-anthropogenic climate cycle. It's kind of like El Nino and La Nina periods, although those periods, you know, they fluctuate on a matter of months or maybe a year or two, where these fluctuate on a decadal basis. And you have warm PDOs and cool PDOs. And you can see in the early 20th century, we had more fire. This is the Northern Rockies region. And then more mountain pine beetle mortality. And then much of the 20th century was a cool PDO, and now we're back in a warm PDO. So that could be driving some of the increase in fires. Again, this is not a human-caused climate cycle, but a natural cycle or non-anthropogenic cycle. Also superimposed on that, we do have climate warming. This is showing increase in temperature since 1900. This is global average mean surface temperature, and you can see it's increased, especially about since 1980 through the middle part of the 20th century. It was fairly flat. It was rising some in the early part of the 20th century, but very pronounced increase since sometime in the 1970s. We also have longer periods during the summer. This data set was from 1979 to 2016. And the red shading, you can see much of the Northwest is shaded red. We have increase of more than 20 days rain-free periods or lack of wetting events during the growing season that the author who published this study believed to be associated with the increasing wildfire severity. We also have more drought recently. You can see, we'll just focus on the Western US, which is the left half of the graph. And so the bars show the percent of months that are in drought. And you can look at the first set of bars is 1960 through 1986. And then the second set of bars for the West is 87 through 2013. And you can see the bars are higher. Moderate, severe, and extreme drought are what's represented by the different color bars. Just looking at extreme drought, more than a doubling of extreme drought from those two time periods in terms of the percent of months that are affected, and we're certainly in a drought now. Some of the climate modeling that's been done and its effect on wildfire has been done. This is not the only publication on this, but you can see quite dramatic. 100% increase in area burned by wildfire from the present. And if you recall from the graph I just showed you, it's been dramatically accelerating in the acres burned just in the last few years. So this is increased from what we're having now, even 500% plus increase in acres burned by wildfire predicted in the coming decades. So some of the effects of future wildfire characteristics that we're seeing with these various factors related to climate and other factors that I'll show you in a minute. Longer fire seasons, increased number of days with high fire danger, increased frequency of ignitions, more frequent episodes of extreme fire behavior. This is definitely something, if you talk to firefighters, they're seeing fire behavior they've never seen before. Increased frequency of large fires and increased area burned. The other thing that's contributing to this is changed forest conditions, at least since the late 19th century. The landscapes that we inherited as Euro-Americans moving out and settling this country. And this is just a series of slides. I show these in a lot of my presentations in our dry forest types. You see a shot from 1909. It's a very open ponderosa pine forest. Same photo point, 1948. You can see how many more trees are in the landscape. And then in 1989, you can't see very far into the picture. That's the same photo point. And you also have a species change from ponderosa pine to Doug fir in that. So you have density of fuel, and then fir trees have what's called a higher crown density than pine. So they're a little bit more susceptible to crown fire than pine. Increasing wildfire risk. There's, I mean, you look at it from a fuels perspective, that's fuel. That's a lot more fuel that fire on the ground can get to than in the 1909 picture. And then just looking at a contemporary photograph of what this looks like up close, you have a ponderosa pine in the foreground there on the left that probably grew in open, more open conditions, and you can see the dense fir stand in there. So crown fire can really move something through something like this very readily. This is kind of a landscape shot. You can see largely Doug fir in there. You can see a lot of mortality, probably from Doug fir beetle. This is up the Clearwater. This actually was ended up being the site of the Johnson Bar fire the Clearwater Basin Collaborative that I work with was going to do a project up there to try to reduce the risk of fire and increase forest conditions, forest health conditions, and other beneficial ecological conditions on the forest. And it burned before we could do the project. So you can see this just kind of a carpet of trees, and they're all a uniform structure, no fuel breaks, all about the same age trees. So this is a shot, it's a contemporary shot, but a lot of authors, and this is a more mesic, a little wetter forest than our lower dryland. This is old growth larch stand, and it's believed from studies that our late 19th century forests were a lot more heterogeneous in their structure. They had a lot more openings, trees were further apart, and thus they were more resistant to these very severe stand replacing fires. Not in every area, it's just that more of the landscape had this kind of forest structure than it does now. This is another shot of a drier forest. Again, this is what is believed to have allowed these forests to survive the 19th century, at least on much of the West. I have not seen the data on our particular area, but the 19th century was a lot of fire in the Western US in general and created these more open forest structures. And then this type of structure in the forest, you can see with the large openings and the widely spaced trees and the clumped arrangement, it's more difficult for fire to move through something like that at a severe level. On the ground, yes, but not lethal fire that kills all the trees and causes other damage and is very hard to control. So it's suggested we should start managing our forests so we can get these type of structures back into our forest and make them more resilient to these large wildfires. This is kind of showing the same concept, but at the landscape level. This is in the Eastern Cascades. You can see the top picture was from 1934. You can see lots of openings in the forest patches. So fire, this is believed to have been caused by repeated frequent fire, but because it was repeated and frequent, it was lower severity. And so it kept the accumulation of these large amounts of fuel that we have today that you can see in the lower photograph from 2010, the same site. It kept those fuels from accumulating, thus the fires were not as severe, and those openings between forest patches would help slow down the fire, keep it on the ground, and certainly for fire suppression, they would give firefighters a better opportunity to control the burn. And I think most people that do research in this area would say that ridgetop to ridgetop blanket of forest, like you see in the lower photograph, and even that has more openings than a lot of our forest here in north central Idaho, is just not sustainable with the climate that we have. So we either need to cut those trees and get them off the landscape and create more resilient forest conditions to wildfire, or they're going to burn like this. So this is the kind of fire, these kind of severe fires always occurred through history, but they're occurring over a larger part of the landscape than they used to, and much more frequently than they used to. So this is the kind of fire we want, is fire like this that occurs more frequently, that keeps brush and fine fuels down. A lot of the regeneration, for example, of fir trees and ponderosa pine stands, it eliminates those so you don't have the ladder fuels. So this is the kind of fire we need to get back on the landscape to make our forests more resilient to wildfire. So I'm going to stop there for questions, and I'm going to stop the share. So if anybody has questions, I can see people. Anyone have any questions about that so far? Okay. Well, I'll keep going then. If I can get this back up, let's see here. Yeah, that's not going to let me share the screen or move the slide. Won't let me move the slide. Let me try this. Oh, wait, let's do this. All right, can everybody see the slide that says questions?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Melody.
Bill, on the top of the screen, there's a big black bar about 1.5 inches wide. Can you get rid of it?
I don't know. I always see
blocking
that.
out the title. Let me unmute.
Melody, do you see what Ron's talking about? Melody?
Yes, I do see that same thing, and I've been trying to get rid of it, and I can't do anything with it.
Yeah, well, I don't see, I mean, I always have those for my controls. Let's see here. Chat, pause, or live transcript. Okay, let me try this. How's that?
Now it's in the middle of the screen.
Oh, wow, it disappeared on mine.
Now it's gone. Now it's gone completely.
Okay, well, I'm driving blind. I don't have any controls, so you might have to coach me, Melody. Okay, I'm going to talk about, if everybody can see that, sorry about that. This Zoom technology is, I don't know, that's never happened before, but I don't know about this electronic stuff. Okay, before I get into this, I want to talk a little bit, just share with you folks the webinar I attended yesterday. So the Northwest Climate Hub, I think it's financed through the federal government, perhaps NOAA, I would guess. I'm not sure about that. They have them every 2 months. And I always try to attend, and they talk about what our weather has been for the last 2 months, and then they look forward. And I just wanted to share some of what I learned on that call. Some of this you may have already picked up through the news. Well, for one thing, you probably already know we're in an unprecedented heat wave, not just in the high record-breaking temperatures that are breaking all-time records, but just the area, Oregon, Washington, all of Idaho, parts of western Montana. It's unprecedented that there's that much heat over that large an area. The other thing that they mentioned, the satellite photographs of the Northwest show no clouds. And they actually showed us a picture of that, said that is rare to ever see all the states of the Northwest with not a single cloud in the sky. It's also the second driest spring on record for Idaho. And the other thing that they mentioned is we're seeing early onset of monsoon pattern. They believe this summer, in fact, a week from now, they do expect some thunderstorms to move into the Northwest, but these are going to be, I forget the term that he used for those. Let's see if I can find it here. High base storm. So what that means is A lot of convection, enough to produce thunder and lightning, but no rain. So definitely what you don't want when you're thinking about wildfire. You probably read in the news about the records over on the west side, so I won't repeat that. Cracked pavement on I-5. The 2021 water year, so the water year, it goes from October 1st to September 31st. And that's the 11th driest on record, but our spring, our year so far is the second driest for Idaho since 1895. And the soil moisture is extremely low. This is something I kind of monitor this over the last few years. Our soil moisture in this area has been very low. It's extremely low right now. And basically what they said is there's not really a good chance of precipitation for our area and much of the Northwest until we get into fall, perhaps not till October, maybe even later. So it was a pretty grim forecast. Probabilities are better for below normal precipitation and above normal temperature. Now this heat wave that we're having right now is caused by a high pressure cell. They called it a heat dome. It's setting over British Columbia, Western Canada. It's bringing in these easterly winds and making it very hot and dry. I just read a scientific paper the other day talking about these heat domes affecting the Northwest and fire in the Northwest. It's not unprecedented to have them. It's just that they seem to be happening more frequently, and they're expected to be more frequent with climate change and also stronger. The heat dome is expected to move further east in Canada by the weekend, lowering our temperature somewhat. So I just wanted to share that with you. It's not, I guess, a pleasant forecast, but anyway, you can, it's right from the people who study this thing and make the forecast. So you get it right from the horse's mouth, or at least secondhand through me. Okay, so on the first of every month, NIFC, NIFC, the National Interagency Fire Center, which is based in Boise, Idaho, and that's the fire center for the entire country, produces a fire outlook, wildfire outlook, and this is map you're seeing here is from June 1. So tomorrow is the 30th. So Thursday, if you want to Google NIFC, NIFC, Significant Wildland Fire Potential Outlook, this report should come up. It's a publication. It's got a lot of text with it. It's more than just the maps. It's broken down into different areas of the country, and you can read about our area and you can see the updated maps. So as you can see from this map, even though this is from June 1st, they're saying July, which starts Thursday, above normal significant wildland fire potential for our area. August, above normal significant wildfire potential outlook for our area. And you can see that area expands into the Great Plains, North Dakota. And then for September, on the June 1st, they're showing our area back to normal from above normal. I mean, still normal, you can have a wildfire, right? That's just normal wildfire. But I suspect we'll see on Thursday, I'm guessing our part of Idaho is probably going to be colored red, because the drought, if you look at the drought monitor, you can get that off the NOAA site online, or you can just Google drought monitor and it'll bring the map up. That extreme drought is moving from eastern Washington into North Idaho and north central Idaho. So enough about all that bad news. What can you do to reduce your risk? So That's what we're going to talk about now. So these are some pictures taken around the area. Well, some pictures later on will be from a study. They did a major study on what houses survived and what houses burned in wildfire down in Texas, and that's used by fire people all over the country. This picture here and some others were taken by a colleague of mine. He's now retired, Dave Summers with Idaho Department of Lands. He worked in the wildfire business for many years, and we used to do live programs in the spring. He and I and CPTPA and Don Gardner, and then the emergency management person from Idaho County, whose name escapes me. We used to do them around north central Idaho. The problem with doing those programs, kind of why I went to this format, even though people really liked all that information and that we did the live programs, you just can't get many people to turn out for it. So we kind of went to this format. We'll see with this summer whether we need to do something, a bigger production or not. But anyway, this is just showing what you don't want around your house. So you see this particular house has a cedar shake roof, definitely not good with given the fire weather that we've been having in recent decades. And also it's got wood siding on it. But you know, one of the major things in addition to the cedar shake roof is all this very flammable evergreen type vegetation all around the house. So this is what we mean by fuel continuity. And then you look down on the grass and that doesn't look very green. So that lawn can catch on fire from an ember. The fire doesn't even have to be that close to the house. Embers fall on that, start that grass on fire. It moves into those evergreen shrubs, and then that catches on fire and catches the house on fire, as well as embers falling on the cedar shake roof. So this is an example of what you don't want your home to look like if you want it to survive wildfire. Another thing about this house is, especially when there's major fires, if there is enough people around that can mobilize for suppression, if there's not enough people to defend every house, firefighters will actually do triage, and they will look at a house like this and they will say, you know, it's lost, and they won't even try to defend it. So you really want to not have this be your house, look like this if you want to survive a wildfire. Now, this house right here is an example of a house that's well armored for wildfire. And I think Dave said the person who built this house was a retired fire chief or firefighter. So they kind of knew the drill on what to do. And this picture was taken, this is near Kamei, and this was a fire just down river a little ways from Kamei back several years ago. This is not 2015, it was prior to that time. And so you can see that the fire came up pretty close to the house, to the driveway there on the right side. And I hope you can see my pointer, but look around this house. So there's little shrubs or trees in these planters, but there's nothing flammable around this house. And yeah, there's dry grass down here, but this house is well armored. Fire can't creep along the ground and get to this house. You've got a few shrubs and trees, and see, they're widely spaced. That's what we mean about breaking up fuel continuity, wide spacing between the shrubs and trees, wide spacing here. These trees here, you know, if it was my place, although this is a great job done to protect a house from fire. If it was my place and maybe he was, like a lot of us, getting to this but hadn't gotten around to it, I would have taken a lot of these trees out. You can see a lot of them burn, maybe just leave a few, you know, 3 or 4 of these trees up near the house. But you can see the fire got pretty close. This looks like it's either gravel or maybe some of it's concrete. That definitely looks like a concrete pad there. So if you're going to have a lawn up to your house, you definitely want to keep it lush green, bright green. If you can't do that, get rid of your lawn, put in gravel or concrete around your house. Okay, so that's kind of what not to do and what to do. So these are just some of the hazards that can be. This is from that study I told you about they did in Texas, where they went around after some of the big fires that they had down in Texas and kind of did a post-mortem on why some of these houses burn. And as I already mentioned, one of the big things that takes out houses is the ember storm that's downwind of these fires. So embers from this fire got up into the attic of this house, and days after the blaze passed through the community, burnt this house. Here's an example of unscreened vents along the, looks like the base of the house that embers can get into and take the house down. Here's an example. I think Dave shot this picture. So this is a deck, kind of an old deck where there's rotted wood and then there's debris collecting between the boards. So this is a perfect place for embers to land. And with that rotten wood and the debris, it'll set the deck on fire. And then here's an example where a deck actually did burn from one of the Texas studies. So you need to keep the deck clean. If there's any rot, replace the board, have a good coating on your deck if it's a wood deck, and that will make it less flammable. Here is some furniture on this porch that caught fire. And so embers can get up on your porch if you've got furniture on your porch, or maybe you're like me, you know, you go to Costco and you come back with all these boxes, and what do? You set them on the deck or set them on the porch. That might be okay in December and January, but not during fire season. You don't want anything flammable, even an ice cooler or something like that. The plastic could catch fire with hot embers landing on it, and then that's going to set your house on fire. Gutters. This is one of the first things. I have not done that yet to my house. I'm trying to do fire prevention things given the fire season we're going through, and I haven't gotten to this yet. Hope to do it over the 4th of July weekend, but this catches a lot of houses on fire, is debris in the gutter. The embers fall in the gutters, then you create a flame, burns the house down. Window wells, the leaves in there, same deal. The embers blow in and catch your window well vegetation, dead vegetation on fire, takes your house down. So maybe that should be a homework assignment for tonight. After the presentation, when it gets a little bit cooler, maybe you should go out and clean your gutters and your window wells out. That'd be step one anyway. So this is a picture, I think Dave took this, or a buddy of his. This is from the 2015 fires, and yeah, two bales escaped, but 2 bales were hit by embers from the 2015 fires and incinerated. Okay, if I can get the technology to work, I'm going to show a video. Okay, can people see that? It just looks black and it shows embers. It says ember storm highlights, or it did. Can everyone see that?
Yes, it can.
Okay, is it covering up most of the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you tell me too, Melody, if you can hear sound, you know about what time it appears. So what you're about to see is a video done by the insurance industry. So what they did, they built a house basically in a big laboratory, in a big warehouse, and they created an artificial ember storm, and it will show you what embers can do to a structure. Embers are, as I said, I'll repeat again, a major reason for houses to go burn during a wildfire. And firefighters tell me that the ember storm that they created for this video is very mild compared to what a wildfire would put out. So anyway, I'll start the video, and then after this is over, I'll stop again for questions. Some of it has sound and some of it doesn't. So Melody's going to let me know if the sound is occurring at the right time.
I have sound now.
Okay, thanks, Melody.
Okay. Any questions about embers? Okay, then I will put my PowerPoint, or I will try to put my PowerPoint back up. Let's see. No, I didn't want to do that. There we go. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes, they can.
Okay. So again, this photograph is from the study they did down in Texas. It's showing how fire moved through the landscaping there. The fire actually took out one of the windows, the outside, but it was a double pane window, so fire was not able to get inside the home. This is a very important point. If there is a wildfire approaching your house, if you have to evacuate, or even if you're there, you want to make sure all the windows are closed, all the doors are closed. You don't want fire to get inside your house. Here's an example of dry grass. If you don't keep your lawn green, this is what can happen. So the fire moved into this house and took the house down with just the grass catching on fire. So again, this demonstrates continuous fuel. Just think of a fuse on a firecracker or dynamite. It has to be continuous. If you cut the fuse, the fire cannot get to the dynamite. It's same deal. You don't want continuous fuel going to your structure. So you want to keep your lawn, if you have one, green, or if you can't keep it green, then you want to get rid of it and have gravel or concrete around your house. This is another example of fuel continuity. Here in the case, this wooden series of steps, and the railings caught on fire, taking the fire to the house. And so this, the caption on the slide does not state whether that came there from the grass or that was ember caused. But the concept is what is important in the continuity of that steps or railing taking the fire to the house. Another example of fuel continuity. Here we have a wood fence that caught on fire. The fire traveled down the fence, took the house down. Again, you know, that was my first bullet on basically the first slide after the title slide. You don't want anything combustible that can burn attached to or near your house. Get things that can burn well away from your house. This slide, we're back here near Kamei, the Clearwater Valley. So a couple of things about this home. It looks like it's a well kept up home, but you can see the yard is dry. So fire under fire weather conditions of low humidity, wind, grass could catch on fire, take it right to the home. And then the other big no-no is look at the huge amount of firewood banked up against that house. So that's a big no-no. You don't want to store firewood anywhere near your house during the fire season. December, January, February, yeah, probably okay to do that, but not during the fire season. Okay, now I'm going to try and show you another video. I think this is gonna take me a couple seconds because okay, can everyone see that? You should be a picture of fire going up a slope and burning a couple of houses. Does everyone see that?
I can see that.
Okay. Okay, so this is an amateur video that was taken. We've shown this a lot in our fire programs that we've done in the past. And what this illustrates is how fast fire, particularly moving up a slope, which is another illustration of how important slope is to the movement of fire. Fire wants to move up slope. And I know we have a lot of homes around here in the canyons and elsewhere that are built on slopes. So it's kind of a cautionary tale about what slope can do. The other thing about this video was taken in Reno, Nevada, and which has, you know, a very extensive fire department, you know, can get places pretty fast. And I think it takes, I know we used to time this when we would do this live. I think it takes about, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes for the fire trucks to arrive. But as you will see, a lot will happen in 5 minutes. And so the first shot of this amateur video, it looks like, yeah, the fire already went up there and caught the houses on fire. But as you watch the video, it gets a lot worse than what you're seeing right now. So I'll start the video, and apparently this fire started, I think some kids or something were playing with matches or something down. There's houses down below this that you can't see right now that started this fire. So it gets a lot worse. And then you might note when you can hear the siren. So just imagine in our area, if you live in rural Clearwater or Idaho County, you call the fire department, how long it might take them to get there compared to the Reno Fire Department and how much damage was done before they got to these homes. So I'll play the video, then we can talk about it afterwards.
It started in the sagebrush. Oh man, I hope there ain't people in those houses.
God. Did you call the fire department?
I'm sure they've got this called in.
It's gonna start this house in front of it.
It's got that one. It's going to get the one on the other side too. There's no doubt about it. It's going up the hill there. They're going to have some problems here. Keep it going, Dan. Holy cow. Got 2 structures involved.
That was on fire. And this next one just went on fire.
You hearing something?
Nope.
tried calling 911. We'll go through. That flame's gonna run up that one and get that one there. See that one? We've got 2 structures involved. If it gets up past that line there and into that other sagebrush, that one's gonna go. All it's got to do is hit that sagebrush there, and it's going right now. It's got it. It's gone. It hit the sagebrush. There it goes. It's going to take off up the hill. So there it hit it. It hit that sagebrush. See where it's going? Just hit the sagebrush, blowing up the hill. Uh-oh. It's going to get a 3rd house now. We've got a 3rd and a 4th house possibly going up now.
Okay, you can just now hear the sirens.
Unbelievable. Yep, the 3rd house is on fire now. 3 structures fully involved.
That was about 4 minutes into the video, and before the video started, the fire was already on a couple of the houses.
Get a 4th house involved here now. Oh, there goes a cat. See the cat running out? Yep. It's going to be a 4th house because of the tree right there. Oh my God. If it hits the tree, which it just did, it's got the tree now. Right now, it's going for the 4th house. Oh no.
Three houses fully engulfed in flames.
We've got 4 going up now. The 4th one is just up.
Crap.
Unbelievable. The 4th house is on, starting now. I don't know what they can possibly do to get this from going to the...
I think the 4th house has already started on fire.
Firemen are there now spraying it.
Yeah, you can see the water coming
You
through.
can see water coming through.
They're trying to save that house. house over there's on fire.
Oh my God, there's 5 houses now.
Now there's 5 houses on fire.
People are still in their house. Can you get them on the back porch? In the 4th house down there.
All right, well, I think you got the message on that. I'll stop sharing. So yeah, just kind of a dramatic illustration of what fire can do. Even though there was not a lot of vegetation on that slope, you can see how slope really potentiates the ability to fire to move fast, and the vegetation was dry. And of course, our rural fire districts out here are probably not going to be able to get to your house in 5 minutes like the Reno Fire Department was able to get at that house. So probably not a good idea to build your house on a slope, but if it is on a slope, make sure you have move any flammable material way down slope. And that publication that Melody sent you will talk about that, how many feet down you need to do if you're on a certain percent slope. So let me see if I can hide this thing again. Hide floating meaning controls. Okay, any questions, any comments about that video or anything else that we've talked about so far? I just basically have one more slide.
I've got a comment for you, Bill.
Yeah, you bet, Ron.
This is amazing, and some people listening may not believe it. Go back just in the videos you showed before this one, of continuity of fire, anything that the fire can hit if it takes it to the house. This happened, you won't believe it, this February 2021. Won't give names. I can't show you the pictures I took. In Orofino, my friend, like a lot of us do when it gets dry out early, he was out burning dead grass in his backyard, flat. In his yard, because he had a bunch of little putty cats, he didn't want to get out and get on the road. He had I think it was about 7 foot tall, and it wasn't just a real fine web. It was a black, like polyethylene, really heavy web fencing that he put up on metal posts all the way around the backyard. 2 things it did: keep the deer out because they'll eat everything on the slope out of Orofino, down in the city limits yet, and keep his putty cats in safe. So there he is out in the afternoon. This is February of this year, burning dry grass. Sometime like, 1, 2 o'clock, he did it. It was flat back there and had a little slope going up to his garden. And just clumps of grass, really. Went in, had company coming, they had dinner, and the people walked in and said, "Oh, I can smell smoke in here." It was about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Oh, my husband was just burning grass out, so I didn't have the windows open. A little air. It was a nice day. So they're getting ready to go to bed about 9 o'clock, and he walks downstairs, 2-floor home, on a slab, concrete slab, nice home. Smell smoke. Geez. Open their computer room, exercise room, hardly see in it for the smoke. Walked over and opened the corner closet, couldn't see it all. 9 o'clock at night, calling the Orfino Fire Department. Here comes a deputy up in 5 minutes. Where's the fire? I don't know, we didn't see any flames. So he runs out to the road. It's on the hill going out Orfino. And he says, well, I'm going out there. I'm not leaving. I want to make sure they find this with the fire chief. And 11 people showed up in all kind of rigs. Fire marshal, fire chief, they went in the back corner of the house on the first floor. And they're looking, well, where's the fire? Got inside, you know, took hoses in, you know, it's all finished, and they've been there 45 years. All kind of smoke pouring out of this corner closet. Well, they finally pulled off the T-111 siding, and the house corner burst into flames. What it was on the home, and my friend does a lot of work down there, you know, for older people in his church. In Orfino, this was before OSB was made. They used a press board, pressed fibers, and on the outside of it, I saw a piece of it that they pulled off at midnight almost. It's a tar paper coating, not paper, but coating itself. Well, I went down and looked at it, and I took some pictures, and I'm just shaking my head. What? What burned? And he showed me. I burned over here, 35 feet away from the house. It's wet, green material and bricks, patio. Well, that fence went from 2 upright 4x4 treated posts with a nice gate in it so he could walk up to his vegetable garden. He was burning when he showed me. It didn't even burn the 4x4 post that's in the concrete. Looked brand new. Well, this thing went 35 feet down the back of the patio to the corner of their house on metal post. And on the bottom he had, I think they were treated 2x4, what he had the bottom of the webbing fence tacked to. And it went down and then went across gravel flat to the corner of the house. T-111 siding, the corner boards are cedar. From 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that thing smoldered. It melded that 7-foot-high polyethylene fence, went down those boards, never even burned the boards. I looked at the last board sitting on wet ground. It's not even charred. Went over there to the dry cedar and started burning that, and burned through and into the corner of the house, and they were ready to go to bed at 9 o'clock. If she hadn't found it, it could have burned the house down, and them included.
Yeah.
Fire marshal, fire chief couldn't believe it. That was this February.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, Ron. But you know, one point that it does make, and I've never mentioned this before in one of these wildfire programs, but you see a lot of people burning in the early spring, and you know, it depends on the year. Sometimes it's okay, but a lot of things are still dry. The vegetation is still dry. If you have a pasture, especially if it wasn't grazed the year before, you still have a lot of dry grass. So it's probably better to wait if you're going to do burning like that around your house till things green up, because you know, depending on the weather, it all depends on a lot of factors, but green lush vegetation is a lot harder to burn than probably a brown lawn is, certainly in this case in February. So I think that's a good thing to keep in mind too. But it's kind of bizarre.
No brown lawn.
Things can happen.
There was no brown lawn, Bill.
I thought you said he was. I thought you said he was burning his lawn.
No, just a clump of grass here and there in the back. It
Oh,
was
okay.
flat.
Okay.
It was that black plastic fence that ignited.
It was a clump of
Just
grass.
think
Yeah,
of it as
I got the fence. I got the fence part, Ron. I just thought you said he was burning grass. So it was.
Oh, it was just a little clump.
It was a pile of grass, not like he was burning off like.
You wouldn't even think you'd want to burn it. It just, and it's traveled down. It melded that fence, and then the gases on it kept the fire going. And I'm looking at that. I said, you got to be kidding me. They are still dealing with the water damage from it, and they're just about done. But I wanted to share that. That's February.
Yeah.
What's it like if it happens in August of this year? I'll mute myself.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. Well, like I said, you can have a fire any time of year, but it shows what continuity of fuel will do, even a fence that's meant to keep cats in, I guess. All right, let's go to the last slide. So just some things to keep in mind. I'll end with is wildland firefighters versus structural firefighters. So wildland firefighters are not trained to fight a structural fire. So if your house is engulfed, a wildland firefighter is not going to try to fight that fire. They will try to keep fire away from your house, but once your house is engulfed, then that's up to a structural firefighter to try to address that. That's where the next bullet comes in, defensible versus survivable space. So remember that first house that I showed you that had all the evergreen shrubs right up against it and the cedar shake roof. So if you've got a yard that looks like that and there's a lot of flammable vegetation everywhere, firefighters may not even go in there to try to keep fire away from your house because it's unsafe for them because there's too much flammable vegetation. Whereas the second house I showed you, that which was the house to model your work around your own house around, then that's a house that they're going to be want to defend because it's safe for them to try to defend a house like that where there's not that much vegetation. So that's something to keep in mind. And then the third thing I already mentioned, the triage. You know, if a house looks like, you know, there's not much chance of saving it, or there's not defensible space, so it's not safe for the firefighters to even try to defend it, then they're going to let your house burn and then go to the next house, which is safer for them to defend and has a higher probability of surviving the fire. So anyway, like I mentioned before, no guarantees, but you know, doing these practices that we've talked about tonight can increase your probability of surviving a fire. This is a shot from the Darby Road that runs from the Red River Ranger Station down south of Elk City to Darby, Montana. I took several years ago. I can't remember the name of this fire. Seems like it was the Pony Fire or the Mustang Fire or something like that, a horse name and fire. But anyway, it was far in the distance. You can see how fires create the convection from the heat, create their own convection clouds, pretty dramatic. A lot of the foreground, you can't really see that in this picture, has also been burned. A lot of that Darby Road, there's thousands of acres up there that have been burned in recent years in that high elevation lodgepole country. So with that, are there any questions about anything that was presented tonight? Okay, well, I would encourage all of you, I want to thank you again for attending. I would encourage you to put these things into practice around your home, particularly with this wildfire season we got facing us in Idaho this year. Things look pretty scary with the forecast and what we're dealing with. So I would encourage you to go implement these things, read the handout that was sent to you today, and implement these things around your homes. Melody is going to be sending you an evaluation for tonight's program. So really appreciate if you would fill that out. Let us know what you thought about the program, how we could improve it, and also what other topics that you would like to see us present. So with that, stay cool, be safe, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye now.